My stepdaughter replaced me with her biological mother at a prestigious award ceremony, but when she needed help, I was gone. I've been married to my husband, David, for over 20 years. When we met, he was a single father to a bright-eyed, curious 6-year-old girl, Olivia. The first time I saw her, she was twirling around in front of a boutique window, admiring the beautiful dresses on display. She clutched David's hand tightly, her excitement radiating. Something about that moment told me they would be my future. David was upfront from the start. Olivia's biological mother, Jessica, had been unreliable, full of empty promises and fleeting appearances. She would call on birthdays, send cheap gifts, and then disappear again. Yet every time Jessica resurfaced, Olivia's eyes would light up, clinging to the illusion of a mother who was never truly there. When David and I became serious, he made it clear that Olivia was his priority. I accepted that wholeheartedly. What I didn't expect was how deeply I would come to love her. It wasn't immediate. At first, she kept her distance. She had already built walls, ones that only crumbled when Jessica was nowhere to be found. But over time, every little "I love you" and every messy sketch of a dress design she proudly handed me won me over. I was there for every scraped knee and every late-night fever, holding her when nightmares woke her up crying. I helped her sew her first costume for a school play, sitting beside her for hours as she struggled with the fabric, her tiny hands clumsily stitching. When she was nervous before a recital, I was the one she searched for in the crowd. And when Jessica missed her ballet recital, one she had promised to attend, I held Olivia as she sobbed into my shoulder, whispering that I would always be there for her. Jessica, on the other hand, was a shadow, drifting in and out of Olivia's life. She made grand promises. "I'll take you to New York Fashion Week next year," or "I'll buy you a designer dress for your birthday," but never followed through. Olivia would cry each time, and I would be the one picking up the pieces. Despite it all, Olivia longed for Jessica's love. And no matter how much I gave, it never seemed to be enough. As she grew older, we bonded over our love for fashion. My boutique, Grace Atelier, became her second home. She would sit in the corner, sketching designs as I worked on custom pieces for clients. I taught her how to sew, how to choose the right fabrics, how to bring her ideas to life. She dreamed of becoming a designer, and I did everything I could to support that dream. When it came time for college, I helped her apply to the best fashion schools. I covered most of her tuition, books, and even the rent for her small apartment in Los Angeles. It was a financial sacrifice, but I didn't care. I wanted her to have opportunities one never had. Jessica? She remained as inconsistent as ever. She would send messages like, "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," or "You're going to be the next Coco Chanel," but she never contributed financially or played any real role in Olivia's education. When Olivia graduated, she ran up to me after the ceremony, tears in her eyes. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said. And at that moment, every sacrifice had been worth it. So when Olivia was nominated for the prestigious Young Designer Award, I was beyond thrilled. We had spent years refining her talent together, sketching late into the night, selecting fabrics, preparing her first collection. She wouldn't have had this moment if not for everything I had taught her. I assumed that, if she won, I would be by her side. After all, I had been there for every milestone. Then, the invitation arrived. I opened it with a smile, expecting to see my name listed as a special guest. Instead, it was just a formal invitation. No mention of me. Worse, when I checked the guest list, I saw Jessica's name at the very top. Olivia had chosen her biological mother to stand beside her at the most important moment of her life. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But when I asked her about it, her response hit me like a punch to the gut. "There's only one real mother, and I've always wanted to give her this moment." I can't describe how that felt. Years of love, sacrifices, and effort dismissed like they meant nothing. But the worst part wasn't Olivia's choice, it was how casually she said it. As if it had never even crossed her mind to acknowledge me. The night of the Young Designer Award ceremony was one of the most humiliating moments of my life. I arrived early, wearing a dress I had designed myself, one of my finest pieces. I sat quietly among the guests, watching as all eyes were on Olivia and Jessica, her real mother. During the speeches, I waited. Maybe she would thank me. Maybe she would acknowledge all the years I spent nurturing her talent, all the nights we spent at my boutique, sketching designs, sewing, and building her confidence. But my name was never mentioned. She stood on stage, tears in her eyes, and said, "I couldn't have done this without my mom." The room erupted in applause. I felt a sharp, crushing weight in my chest. I was invisible. Something inside me broke that night, the part of me that had always been willing to sacrifice, always hoping one day she would see me as more than just a placeholder. I didn't know it then, but that moment marked the beginning of a change that would alter everything. The image of Olivia standing on that stage, beaming with pride as she hugged Jessica, was burned into my memory. She was radiant, as any young woman should be when achieving her dreams. But for me, the moment was filled with bitterness, not because I didn't want her to be happy, but because I realized I was disposable to her. She had chosen Jessica, and she had done so without a second thought. A week later, Olivia and her fiancé, Ryan, left for a luxury vacation, a designer retreat in Italy, with private villas, exclusive fashion tours, and fine dining under the stars. I didn't ask much about it. I couldn't bring myself to engage in conversations about something that marked the breaking point of our relationship. What I didn't expect was what happened when she returned. She barely had time to unpack before calling me. Her tone was light, as if nothing had happened. She gushed about the breathtaking views, the people she had met, the romantic dinner Ryan had planned on a rooftop terrace. I listened in silence, responding with short answers, struggling to keep my composure. Then the conversation took a turn I should have seen coming. "Stepmom," she said, the familiarity of that word cutting deeper than I wanted to admit. "I need a favor." I could already feel my stomach twisting. There were some unexpected expenses, and we're a little short on cash. "Could you help cover the cost?" For a moment, I was speechless. The way she asked, so casually, so assured, like she simply expected me to say yes. Just as I always had. I was the one who fixed things. The one who provided. The one who sacrificed for her without question. But this time, something in me refused. Maybe it was wounded pride. Maybe it was the weight of years of being overlooked. All I knew was that for the first time, I didn't feel obligated to say yes. "I'm sorry, Olivia," I said, keeping my voice steady, though my heart pounded. "I can't help you this time." Silence. I could imagine the confusion on her face. "But you've always helped before," she finally said, disbelief in her voice. I took a deep breath. "Maybe you should ask Jessica," I said evenly. "She's your real mother, isn't she? Maybe she can help." Another long silence. Then a quiet, "I understand." And she hung up. No argument. No anger. Just an abrupt ending that left an empty space in my chest. Later that night, David confronted me. "You're being cruel," he said. "You can't just abandon Olivia when she needs you." I looked at him, feeling a mix of exhaustion and frustration. "This isn't about money, David," I said. "It's about respect. I was there for her for over 20 years. And when she had the chance to acknowledge that, she chose to act like it wasn't enough. She's still our daughter." "No, she's your daughter," I interrupted. "And when things don't go her way, I can't keep being her backup plan." David didn't understand. To him, blood always came first. Even when that blood had done nothing but make empty promises. The conversation ended in silence, but something between us had shifted. An invisible wall had formed, one that hadn't been there before. Olivia never contacted me again after that call. A week later, David told me that Ryan was furious with me for abandoning Olivia in a tough moment. Apparently, Jessica had unsurprisingly vanished. No calls. No messages. Nothing. I guess Olivia was finally seeing the truth. But that didn't change what she had done. Or how she had made me feel. That night, alone in the living room, I replayed every moment I had been there for Olivia. Every time she had smiled and called me stepmom. Every time I had told myself that title meant something. And I realized something. I had always believed that love was a choice, that family was a choice. But now I wondered if, to Olivia, it had ever been anything more than a convenience. I had always believed that being called stepmom was a choice, a recognition that I had earned my place in Olivia's life. But now I wondered if it was just a convenient word to her, something she said when it benefited her. I don't know if I can ever move past this. But one thing is certain, this time, I won't be the one to keep giving. Because honestly, I don't think I have anything left to give. Underscore 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 underscore. 3 months have passed since the Young Designer Award, and despite my efforts to distance myself, drama seems to find me no matter what. David, of course, constantly tries to mend things between Olivia and me. He looks at me with that mix of disappointment and pleading, as if waiting for me to give in and go back to being the woman who never said no. But what he doesn't understand, or refuses to accept, is that something inside me changed that night. I can't just go back to how things were. Since that phone call, where I refused to pay for Olivia's designer retreat expenses, our relationship has completely faded. She hasn't reached out, and while that hurt at first, now it feels like a relief. No more casual check-ins that end in requests for money. What did surprise me, though, was how quickly problems began to arise in her life. David, of course, kept in constant contact with Olivia, and he casually brought it up over dinner one night. Olivia and Ryan are struggling financially, he said with a heavy sigh. Ryan lost his job, and they're having trouble paying the rent. I kept eating, already knowing where this was going. Don't you think we should help them? David pressed. She's our daughter, after all. I set down my fork and took a deep breath. I'm not her mother anymore, David. According to Olivia, that role belongs to Jessica. So if she needs help, she should ask her. David looked at me like I had just said something unforgivable. How can you be so cold? She's always counted on you. You can't turn your back on her now. I let out a bitter laugh. Cold? Cold is what she did to me at that award ceremony, I said, my voice cracking with the emotions I had been holding back. Because honestly, that's exactly how it felt, cold and invisible. Like I never spent 2 decades being the one who was there for her. If Jessica is her mother for the big moments, then she can be her mother in the difficult ones, too. That ended the conversation. David stormed off, taking his plate to the sink with an angry clatter. That night, we slept in silence, back turned to each other. It hurt that this was affecting our relationship, but I couldn't keep being the woman who gave and gave, getting nothing in return. Despite everything, Olivia didn't take long to reach out, though not directly. A week later, I got a message from Ryan, short but heavy with desperation. Hey, it's Ryan, Olivia's husband. I need to talk to you about something important. Do you have time? I didn't reply right away. I let the message sit there, a reminder of how much things had changed. I read it over and over, knowing exactly what he wanted. Money. It was always money. Eventually, I decided to hear him out. I had nothing to lose. We met at a local cafe. Ryan was already there, nervously tapping his foot, staring at an untouched coffee. I sat down without a word, waiting for him to speak first. Thanks for coming, he said finally, though his tone lacked sincerity. It felt more like an obligation than genuine gratitude. I know things have been tense between you and Olivia, but we're going through a tough time and thought maybe you could help. There it was, the inevitable request. I kept my face neutral. What do you need? I asked, even though I already knew. Ryan sighed, staring at his coffee as if searching for the right words. Olivia and I have been struggling financially since the designer retreat. I lost my job recently, and now we're behind on rent. If we don't pay in 2 weeks, we'll be evicted. I nodded slowly, letting his words sink in before asking the one question he clearly hadn't expected. Have you asked Jessica? Ryan looked up, confused. Jessica? No, we haven't talked to her. Olivia thought. Well, that you might help. You've always been there for her. I smiled, but it wasn't a kind one. It was bitter, ironic. Exactly, I said, leaning forward slightly. And yet, when she had to choose who would stand beside her on the most important night of her life, she picked Jessica. So no, Ryan, I won't be helping this time. Maybe it's time for Jessica to finally step up for once. Ryan tried to argue, saying it wouldn't be fair if they got evicted, that this wasn't just about Olivia, but about him, too. I held up a hand to stop him. This conversation is over, I said firmly. I wish you both the best, but I can't keep solving your problems. I stood up and left him there, alone with his cold coffee and his frustration. When I got home, David was waiting for me, as if he already knew what had happened. I didn't give him details, he didn't need them. He could tell I had refused to help. Since then, Olivia and Ryan have stopped trying. David is still upset, though he stopped pushing me to give in. But something tells me this isn't over. When a relationship crumbles, there's always more debris to come. I leaned forward and repeated my words, making sure Ryan understood. And yet, when she had to choose, she picked Jessica. So no, Ryan, I won't be helping this time. Maybe it's time for Jessica to finally step up for once. Ryan tried to argue, saying it wasn't fair if they got evicted, that this wasn't just about Olivia, but about him too. I held up a hand to stop him. David, however, is still upset. Though he stopped pushing me to give in, I can feel the tension every time Olivia's name is mentioned. But something tells me this isn't over. When a castle crumbles, there's always more debris to come. 6 months have passed since the Young Designer Award, and to be honest, these months have been strangely liberating. I've stood firm in my decision not to involve myself in Olivia and Ryan's problems. Though it's meant dealing with David's constant resentment, I know I made the right choice. David doesn't say it outright, but I see it in his eyes. He still hasn't forgiven me for what he sees as a betrayal. No matter how many times I explain that this isn't about money but respect, he either doesn't understand or refuses to. But the distance between Olivia and me has brought me something I never expected: relief. For the first time in years, I feel free from the weight of always being the one to hold everything together. I've started focusing on myself again, picking up old hobbies, spending time with friends, rediscovering who I was before I let my life revolve around Olivia's needs. At first, I felt guilty for taking this space for myself. But now I see it as necessary. Still, the drama hasn't stopped. A few weeks ago, David told me something I had already seen coming. Olivia and Ryan were evicted, he said one evening, his voice tight. I barely reacted. They couldn't gather enough money to catch up on rent, and their landlord ran out of patience, he continued. Now they're staying with Ryan's mother in a cramped apartment. Barely enough space for 2 people, let alone a married couple. I stirred my tea and took a sip, waiting for the inevitable. David didn't disappoint. This wouldn't have happened if you had helped them, he said, his tone laced with blame. I sighed. I didn't even bother responding. It didn't matter what I said. David would always see me as the villain for any hardship Olivia faced. What he doesn't realize is that, deep down, I know I did the right thing. Olivia made her choice. She chose to push me aside. Now, she's facing the consequences of those choices. According to David, Jessica has been completely absent through all of this. She didn't return Olivia's calls. She didn't reply to her messages. Nothing. Not surprising. Jessica has been unreliable her whole life. But what is interesting is that, after all the effort Olivia put into placing her on a pedestal, after choosing her over me at the most important moment of her life, Jessica isn't there now when she actually needs her. A few days ago, while David was making dinner, he told me something that almost made me laugh out loud. Jessica promised to help Olivia find a new place to live. I raised an eyebrow. And? David sighed. She still hasn't followed through. Says she's waiting for her finances to stabilize. I let out a small, humorless laugh. And Olivia still believes her? I asked, more curious than angry. David looked down, stirring the pot on the stove, avoiding my gaze. She's her mother, he said simply. As if that explained everything. That conversation lingered in my mind long after it ended. For years, I tried to fill the void Jessica left in Olivia's life. For years, I gave her everything I had, hoping she would one day see that I was more than just a replacement. But now, I wondered, had it all been in vain? Maybe, to her, biology always mattered more than actions. Maybe I was never competing with Jessica's presence, but with the simple fact that she existed. A week ago, Olivia finally reached out to me. Surprisingly, it wasn't about money. She sent a message asking to meet, saying she wanted to talk. I hesitated for a long time before responding. But in the end, curiosity won. I agreed to meet Olivia. We met at a small cafe. Olivia was already there when I arrived, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. She looked up, offering a hesitant smile, then stood to give me a brief hug, one that felt more like an obligation than sincerity. For a moment, we sat in silence. Then she started talking, but not about why she had called me. Instead, she went on about how difficult life had been with Ryan's mother, the tension in her marriage, how much she missed having her own space. I listened without interrupting. Then, finally, she got to the point. "Stepmom," she said carefully. "I know I hurt you." I didn't realize how much until it was too late. I felt a mix of emotions, disbelief, sadness, resentment. "I never meant to make you feel replaced," she continued. I let her words settle before finally responding. "But you did." My voice was calm but firm. "And not just that night, Olivia. Every time you ignored everything I did for you. Every time you chose to see Jessica as something she never was. You say you didn't want me to feel replaced, but honestly, I don't think I was ever truly in that place to begin with." She looked down, shaken. Maybe she had expected me to accept her apology and pretend nothing had happened. But that wasn't possible anymore. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired. As we said goodbye, she told me she hoped we could rebuild our relationship with time. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want it, but because I wasn't sure it was possible. Olivia hadn't just broken my heart. She had shattered something deeper, my trust in her. And that was something I didn't know if I could ever get back. Since the Young Designer Award, my relationship with David has crumbled beyond what I ever imagined. What started as emotional distance turned into something worse, an unbridgeable gap. The love, the bond, even the respect gone. We still shared a house, but not a life. No intimacy. No conversations. Just silence. At first, I thought it was stress. But over time, I realized David wasn't just upset. He was resentful. He blamed me for Olivia's suffering. And that resentment seeped into every part of our marriage. And in the middle of that emptiness, someone else entered my life. Nathan, David's best friend. He had always been around, the fun uncle to Olivia, always cracking jokes, always the life of the room. But after the Young Designer Award, something changed. He started calling more, checking in on me. At first, I thought he was just being supportive, trying to fix things between David and me. But over time, I realized it was more than that. Nathan was the only person who truly listened. He told me what no one else had. That I was right. That my feelings were valid. That David had been unfair to me. Our conversations became something I looked forward to. He didn't see me as the villain in the story. I won't say this was planned, because it wasn't. It just happened. One night, after another long talk, we sat in silence, just looking at each other. We had talked about everything. How I felt invisible in my own home. How David had grown cold. How my life felt like it was falling apart. Then, out of nowhere, Nathan reached for my hand. His touch was warm, steady. And then he said something that left me speechless. "You deserve to be happy." I don't know what made me lean in. His voice? The way he looked at me? But the next thing I knew, I was kissing Nathan. And he didn't pull away. That night, I didn't go home. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. I felt wanted. I knew what I was doing was wrong. But I didn't regret it. Nathan became my escape, someone who truly saw me. With him, I found what I had lost with David: connection.